Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. There are moments in history, in human history, when one can say that was a historic moment. The interview that SADC gave, press release to give a summary of their preliminary report on the 2023 Zimbabwean election, was a historic moment. This was the moment when Zimbabwe took the right turn. We have been going in the wrong direction. SADC itself had been going in the wrong direction since 2013, when they decided to endorse flawed elections in Zimbabwe. This time, they decided to do the right thing. And it is a historic moment because this is a defining moment for Zimbabwe. I'd like you to listen to the interview, to the press release that SADC gave on the 2023 Zimbabwean election.
I would like now to call upon His Excellency Dr. Nekas Mumba, former Vice President of the Republic of Zambia and head of the SADC Electoral Observation Mission to the Republic of Zimbabwe's harmonized elections, to come and deliver his statement. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
I should turn it as it's going, right? Like that. I can work, yeah? And can I focus on him now? Like that there? Okay, I think like this. Enough again. Huh? Can I put it down a bit?
Your Excellency, the former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, distinguished heads of election observers mission to the Republic of Zimbabwe, distinguished members of the SADC organ, Troika, Director of the SADC organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation, representatives and members of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, Your Excellencies, heads and representatives of the diplomatic missions accredited to the Republic of Zimbabwe, members of the SADC Electoral Advisory Council, SADC election observers, leaders and representatives of the various political parties, representatives of local and international election observation missions, religious leaders and members of the civil society, members of the media, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, it is my distinct honor to welcome you all to this important event where I will present the SADC Electoral Observation Mission, SIOM's preliminary statement on the conduct of the 2023 harmonized elections in the Republic of Zimbabwe. The elections were observed in line with the revised SADC principles and guidelines governing democratic elections 2021 and the relevant laws of the Republic of Zimbabwe. I was appointed as the head of the SADC Electoral Observation Mission to the Republic of Zimbabwe by His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, President of the Republic of Zambia, in his capacity as the chairperson of SADC Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation. I maintained close collaboration with members of the organ Troika, currently comprised of the Republics of Zambia and Namibia and the United Republic of Tanzania regarding the harmonized elections in Zimbabwe. The SIOM also benefited from the pre-election goodwill assessment mission and report of and advice from the SADC Electoral Advisory Council, known as SADC. As of 68 observers, 50 were deployed to the 10 provinces of Zimbabwe, and the rest were based at the CM headquarters here at the Rainbow Tower Hotel. Our observers were deployed to Harare, Bulawayo, Machwingo, Matabeleland North, Matabeleland South, Midlands, Manicaland, Mashonaland East, Mashonaland Central, and Mashonaland West. During the pre-election phase, the mission consulted key stakeholders, such as the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, ZEC, key government agencies, leaders of political parties, representatives of faith-based organizations, media, civil society organizations, and the heads of international election observation missions. The preliminary statement covers the mission's observations of the pre-election period and voting day activities. The mission's final report will cover in more detail the observations of the pre-election and the post-election phases, and is aimed at supporting and strengthening the democratic electoral processes in the Republic of Zimbabwe as a SADC member state. Now, here is the summary of our findings. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I now wish to share the summary of the mission's key findings. A, political and security environment. After consulting widely with stakeholders, the consensus was that the country was generally calm and peaceful. Constitutional and legal framework for the elections. The mission noted that the 23rd of August 2023 harmonized elections in Zimbabwe were regulated by the Constitution of the Republic of Zimbabwe and the Electoral Act of 2013. According to Section 158, Section 1, Subsection A of the Constitution of Zimbabwe of 2013, general elections should take place more than 30 days before the expiry of the 5-year period specified in Section 143 of the Constitution. The mission noted that this section applies to the duration and dissolution of Parliament and stipulates that Parliament is elected for a 5-year period which commences from the date the President-elect is sworn in and assumes office. The mission further noted that Section 144 of the Constitution requires the President, by proclamation call, to set a date for a general election after consultation with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Pursuant to this provision, His Excellency Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, on 31st May 2023, issued a proclamation fixing the 23rd of August 2023 as the date for the presidential, parliamentary, and local government elections referred to as the harmonized elections. The mission was informed that a further proclamation was issued rendering 24th August 2023 as a polling day because of the delays experienced at certain polling stations. Furthermore, President Mnangagwa also proclaimed 2nd October 2023 for the runoff election to the office of president if such a poll becomes necessary. The mission noted that this proclamation was in line with the paragraph 4.1-3 SADC principles and guidelines governing the democratic elections, which requires that the date or period of elections is prescribed by law. C, election management. The mission noted that the elections in Zimbabwe are managed by the ZEC, which is one of the 5 Chapter 12 of the Constitution Commissions, that is, independent commissions whose purpose is to support democracy in Zimbabwe. In terms of Section 235 of the Constitution, the commissions must act in accordance with the Constitution, and they must exercise their functions without fear, favor, or prejudice. D. The war that was conducted in 2022 by the ZEC was marred with controversy in various constitutional rules with respect to minimum and maximum sizes of the 210 electoral constituencies. The courts dismissed legal challenges that were brought against the delimitation report of 2022. The mission, however, noted that there still remain questions regarding the delimitation exercise for the following reasons. Number one, in its delimitation, then calculated the 20% deviation from the national average voter registration expected in each constituency, which was 27,640. This yielded a deviation of 5,528 voters. Since the average number of registered voters was regarded as a stable benchmark against which delimitation of constituencies was considered and conducted, the deviation figure was added to the national average to determine the maximum number of registered voters that a constituency delimited would contain. For example, now at 33,168. Two, the mission noted that the use of the average number of voters per constituency is inconsistent with the provision of section 161 subsection 6 of the new constitution that was adopted in 2013. The word average appears in section 61A, subsection 6 of the old constitution of Zimbabwe, under which it was permissible to calculate the minimum and maximum permissible number of voters per constituency by using the national average as the baseline. The word average does not exist in section 161, subsection 6 of the new constitution, which deals with the same subject matter. The difference between section 61A, subsection 6, and section 161, subsection 6 of the old and the new constitutions, respectively, is far from being merely technical. Number three, in the new constitution, and in the context of section 161, subsection 6, the maximum deviation is 20% of the voters registered in the constituencies. The new constitution uses actual constituency by constituency registered voter population, not the national average number of constituency voter population. To calculate the permissible deviation from the requirement that constituencies must have an equal number of voters. Mathematically, the two methods produce very different results and affect the equality of the vote concerning the elections to Parliament. On the other hand, since the country votes as a single constituency in the presidential election, the difference in the methods has no particular impact on the equality of the vote in that election. It was, therefore, not unexpected that ZEC would receive substantial criticism on this aspect of its latest delimitation report. Let me deal with the voters' roll. Some stakeholders decried the delay in releasing the voters' roll in a searchable and analyzable format as prescribed by the Electoral Act. Some stakeholders expressed displeasure that the delay in releasing the voters' roll resulted in missed opportunities for them to audit the voters' roll and therefore give the public confidence about the veracity of the voters' roll. According to the ZEC, there was, however, an opportunity that was provided for interested parties to inspect the voter roll as provided by the Electoral Act. In this regard, the mission took note of section 62 of the Constitution. This section provides that every Zimbabwean citizen has the right to access any information held by the state or by any institution or agency of government at every level insofar as the information is required in public interest. The mission also noted that in terms of Section 21, the Electoral Act, the Commission shall within a reasonable period of time provide any person who requests it, and it also pays prescribed fee with a copy of any voter's roll, including a consolidated roll referred to in Section 20, subsection 4A, either in printed or in electronic form as the person may request. Access to the voter's roll is also premised on the constitutional requirement that the ZEC must deliver fair elections. In the exercise of this function, the Constitution requires the ZEC to exercise this function. The Constitution requires the ZEC to ensure that those elections are conducted efficiently, freely, fair, transparently, and in accordance with the law. Following consultations with the ZEC, the mission was informed of the conflict created by the introduction of the Cyber and Data Protection Act, which enjoins all institutions and agencies to protect the privacy of information entrusted to them vis-à-vis the provisions of Section 21 of the Electoral Act, where the voters' roll, although containing the personal information of voters, i.e. names, date of birth, ID numbers, address, sex, is a public document open to inspection by the public. Such conflict has resulted in there being litigation around the voters' roll as aforementioned, where in one case an applicant does not want his information public, and yet in another the applicant seeks an order directing that the voters' roll be upheld. The mission acknowledged the concerns the ZEC raised above regarding difficulties related to releasing electronic versions of the voters' roll. However, the mission also noted that the law gives the Commission discretion to impose reasonable conditions to prevent the voters' roll from being used for commercial or other purposes unconnected with an election. In particular, the mission noted that Section 21 of the Electoral Act provides the following. In terms of subsection 3, 4, or 6, its format must be such as follows: its contents to be searched and analyzed, provided that the roll may be formatted so as to prevent its being altered or otherwise tampered with. The Commission may impose reasonable conditions on the provisions of the roll to prevent it from being used for commercial or other purposes. Required a 7-day notice instead of a 3-day notice that is applicable during election periods in accordance with Section 7(1)(b) subsection 2 of the Maintenance of Peace and Order Act. G. Freedom of expression. The mission received concerns from several stakeholders that the recent amendment of the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act, Chapter number 9, number 23 of 2004, which amendment is commonly referred to as the Patriot Act, has resulted in a severe restriction of the freedom of expression, which is guaranteed by Section 61, subsection 1 of the Constitution. The Patriot Act creates the offense of willfully injuring the sovereignty and national interest of Zimbabwe. Stakeholders were particularly concerned that this offense is vague, too general, and it criminalizes any communication between two or more persons, whether happening in person or virtually or by a combination of both, which invokes or is facilitated or convened by a foreign government or any of its agents, proxies, or entities. Of note was also the concern that even the consultations between these stakeholders and international observation missions like ourselves could fall afoul of this law. The mission noted that the Patriot Act is incompatible with the spirit of Section 61, subsection 1 of the Constitution and paragraph 1 and 2 of the SADC Principles and Guidelines governing democratic elections, which requires member states to uphold, amongst others, the freedom of expression. H, nomination of candidates and nomination fees. The mission noted the unprecedented amount of litigation surrounding the elections, amongst others concerning the nomination process of candidates. In this respect, we further noted the protest and litigation of a Mr. Xavier Kasukuwere, who believes that he was unfairly disqualified as a presidential candidate. However, the courts dismissed this particular complaint. The mission further noted stakeholder concerns that nomination fees for a person to stand for election have become too high and therefore restrictive to political participation. In June, the government, through the statutory instrument 144 of 2022, increased the presidential nomination from the fee of $1,000 to $20,000 US. Nomination fees for a
I think we'll stop it there. To me, this is a historic SADC. SADC in 2013, at the end of the GNU, advised Morgan Tsvangirai and company that they should not participate in those elections without reforms. As they say to Morgan Tsvangirai to his face, these elections are flawed and will not achieve anything. But when their advice was ignored, they decided that they would endorse the election results of 2013, and they did. And ever since, they've been doing the same thing. I think Zanu PF expected them to do the same thing this year. And they were very much surprised when SADC refused to do so. This is a historic turning moment. And it is for Zimbabweans now to seize the initiative and take it forward. Thank you very much and good day.